From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's a great day, isn't it? Man, it's so inspiring. I'm Kevin Merida. I'm managing editor of the Washington Post. This is the first time I got applause. We are proud to be charter sponsors of this festival, now in its 15th year. If you've been here all day, you know by now, just issue these disclaimers that it is being recorded for posterity, so please be on your best behavior. Turn off your cell phones. And for those out there tweeting, the hashtag is NatBookFest15. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ishmael Reed. Ishmael Reed is a novelist, poet, playwright, editor, lyricist, essayist, television producer, media commentator, teacher, lecturer, cartoonist, activist. Is that enough? And a few more things I've left out in the interest of time. Let me just say he is crazy prolific. The author of 30 books, the editor of 13 anthologies, the creator of 7 plays. In 1 year, 1973, he was a National Book Award finalist twice. In fiction for his acclaimed Mumbo Jumbo, and in poetry for his collection, Conjure. Many of his essay titles, for those who read his essays, are provocative reflections of an active, unrelenting mind. Going Too Far, essays about America's nervous breakdown. Barack Obama and the Jim Crow media, or the return of the nigger breakers. He does not mince words. He has taught countless students and readers how to think well and think differently. He challenges convention, pierces egos, makes the comfortable fidgety. He imparts wisdom while leaving your brain on fire and inspired. In 1988, he was awarded a prestigious Macarthur Fellowship, commonly known as a Genius Grant, and a genius he is. I remember that day because I was working in the style section, was asked to write that story. For 35 years, he taught creative writing courses at the University of California, Berkeley, and also has taught at Harvard, Yale, Dartmouth, and many other places. Today, he will teach at the National Book Festival. He's here to talk about his new book, The Complete Muhammad Ali, which Ron Jacobs, reviewing and Counterpunch, describes this way. The Complete Muhammad Ali is 12 solid rounds of writing. Throughout the text, Ishmael Reed jabs and juts, fades and dances. He even plays a little rope-a-dope. In the end, his biography of Muhammad Ali stands above its competition. So without further delay, please give a National Book Festival warm welcome to Ishmael Scott Reed.
That was a wonderful introduction. Maybe the Washington Post will start reviewing my books again. It's been a long time. Thank you very much. Absolutely. I thought I'd mince words today. Is everybody ready for that? I'm going to read from a new collection of poetry. And if Norton Publishers are out there, I'm sure this will impress you. All the publishers are here. My daughter's here, Tennessee Reed. She assists me in teaching at the California College of the Arts every spring semester, and published her first book when she's 11. By the time she went to college, she had more books out than the professors. It's easy. I want to read a poem I wrote called Why I Will Never Write a Sonnet. The draw of the form I fail to see, the 14 lines which poets have groped, too many birds, too many trees, too many hallmark, how do I love these? Except Exception might be Milton's poke at the bloody Piedmontese. Employed by men with too much time, of noble birth and cousins of kings, whose toil was thoughts about the nature of things, who never had their hands touch grime, whose sonnets were roses, were soft, lacked spine. Claude McKay made the sonnet fight, so students of verse give the Jamaican his props. His sonnet, like hard bop, had some spunk, like Silver's left hand on opus defunct. But even with this, I can't get on it. So take this, critics, as a bee in your bonnet. You are reading a man who will never write a sonnet. Okay. I go on these panels where everybody's 50 years younger than me. See, the hip hop generation. And because Tupac Shakur mentions me in one of his songs, Still I Rise. So I wrote a poem about the difference between hip hop and the blues. And the blues wins, I'm sorry. I mean, you know, country westerns and country western songs and blues are written by grown-ups. I don't want to start a speech here. I'm really serious about music. While walking among the ducks, geese, and crows at the Emeryville Marina, my pods switch back and forth between hip-hop and the blues. Emeryville, an old racetrack town, now paved over by Ikeda and Banana Republic, which are plopped down on the burial grounds of the Ohlone. However, you can still play blackjack at the Oak Club. The blues drinks elderberry wine. Hip-hop drinks French wine. Hip-hop can be informative and enlightening CNN for the streets, but the corporate kind is to music what Monsanto is to monarch butterflies. Not music, but a threat. The blues records the diary of one's soul. Corporate hip-hop is all about the Benjamins. In the blues, the eagle flies on Friday. The blues wears overalls. Hip-hop wears Vuitton, Versace, and Gucci. The blues drive rocket 88s and beat up Cadillacs. Hip-hoppers drive Bentleys, Lexus, and Maserati. In the blues, a lover's departure brings out the sweet, aching sounds of despair. On corporate hip-hop, women are bitches, hoes, and skanks. The men are pimps with furry smiles. Jay-Z has brunch at the Four Seasons. Bluesmen grease at Smokey Joe's Cafe. Bluesmen meet their women on rustic Blueberry Hills. Hip-hoppers wear $250,000 on their wrists. Blues people buy their watches at Sears. Hip-hoppers meet up in players' clubs. Hip-hoppers take out their rivals with AK-47s. Bluesmen prefer Smith and Wesson, or razors, as in Bessie's, quote, cut him if he run, shoot him if he stands still. Or Poison, nothing in the drugstore, do it as quick as I will. A warning from Maggie Jones to a four-flushing papa, quote, you better play it straight with me. If I find another queen in your deck, there's going to be a wreck. Hip-hoppers are former latchkey kids who grew up on lifestyles of the rich and famous. Blues listened to race radio and heard B.B. King embrace Lucille. Hip-hoppers dine on oysters and mussels for the blues, corn on the cob, or a pig foot and a bottle of beer will do. Hip-hoppers wear Jimmy Choo. Blues often goes barefoot. Hip-hoppers, fantasy lovers are Vogue models who inhabit cribs in the mountains with 2-mile driveways. Blues is satisfied with Fannie Mae. Hip-hoppers vacation at Saint-Tropez. The blues take the Greyhound to Memphis. Hip-hop lives in South Beach with a yacht docked near a mansion. Blues singers grew up in one-room Delta shacks. Their only companions, a harmonica and a 12-foot cotton sack. Thank you. This poem is entitled, A Diabetic Dreams of Cake. Wall Street says that cake sales are low. To put it bluntly, cake is fizz. So why is a diabetic dreaming of cake? Asked to leave a temple because he didn't know that rice cakes were sacrament. He managed to jam some into his pockets. He dreamed that Mount Diablo was a devil food cake. He began to munch it down until his path was interrupted by his pancreas. Pancreas had stick-like arms and legs and was frowning. It put its hand up and beckoned him to halt. He pushed aside the pancreas and finished his meal. Next, he was attending the Asparagus Festival in Freiburg. It was held in a great medieval hall, and before each person, there was a plate of asparagus. He started banging on his plate. Asparagus nicht, Kuchen ja. Next, he was running across Central Park, juggling a wedding cake without losing a single flake. Safely in some Brooklyn room, the news said that he had stolen the cake from a Tony Eastside wedding. He didn't take it all in. He was too busy eating the cake and watching Julia Childs. He was on a plantation doing what looked like a goose step. He was twirling a cane. He was wearing a monocle, a black top hat, and shiny black boots. The master said, "That takes the cake." Some of the slaves applauded. Others grumbled and called him a dandy. The master said, "You can sleep with my wife and daughter tonight." He started running because they were ugly. Or shall we say, beauty challenged and booty challenged. Under old southern pine tree, he ate his cake. He was chilling with his witch. Oh, not the one with the wart on her nose and wearing a black cone-shaped hat, but a centerfold witch. You've seen her. She was riding his broomstick while feeding him gingerbread. The walls were caked with gingerbread. The doors, the floor, and the windows were gingerbread. Finicky about neatness, she kept sweeping his feet from the table, but something outside of the window caught her attention. 2 blonde children were coming down the road, and here he thought that the bones in the fireplace were animal bones. She pushed him to the back door, but he persuaded her to give him a piece for the road. Next, he was sitting in a congressional hearing on whether to classify pancakes as cake. A conservative senator warned of a slippery slope. "What next?" he said. "Icing on biscuits?" His mother learned to make chocolate cake when working for a German family. Charlene, whose mother was German, said that the Germans use real cocoa, and so he found himself as tiny as a baby fly inside of his mother's favorite cake bowl. He was climbing the ladle to reach the icing around the rim of the bowl. He and Sigmund Freud. He kept falling backward every time he was about to reach the top. Now they tell him that he has no free will, that the bacteria inside his gut have goals that don't jive with his. For this bacteria, he is just a delivery system that brings them sugar. For them, his body is a bakery. Is there no end to subservience? He would find the conversation that his cells have about him hair-raising. They crave cake, even though cake spikes his sugar. And so, as you grow older, while the external adversaries with whom you have been feuding either die or break bread with you, the internal adversaries multiply. And they couldn't give a Twinkie about whether you live or die. I got to send that one to the Association of Association of Retired People, AAPR. It's my favorite reading matter these days. Let's see. I decided that I'd become bored with just communicating one species, so I got a crow's whistle. It really works, you know. They have a language of their own. So I call this Gustav. A scientist says that crows can recognize human faces. After he released those he tested in labs, they'd harass him whenever he took a walk. I guess that's why crows don't talk to me anymore. Strolling down the path of the Emeryville Marina, we used to be good buddies. They'd do 3 calls, and I would do 3. And then they would do 4 calls, and I'd respond with 4. But now they're silent. I must have said something wrong. I guess they're on to me. I guess they're saying among themselves, there goes that fellow who thinks he's one of us. I never got as close to crows as Marlise. Her mother bought Gustav for 5 Swiss francs. He used to follow her to school and would perch on a tree branch outside her classroom. He'd stand on her shoulder when she went horseback riding. Her stepfather and brothers hated Gustav. When he flew into their bedroom window, the brothers smothered him with linen and laughed as he struggled. After that, the brothers were objects of his furious pecking. He'd tear out their hair. He crow-sacked the kitchen, broke dishes, covered himself with flour. When Marlise returned from Catholic school, she found that the stepfather had shot the crow. She never forgave him. The next bird, I'm writing a lot about birds. The next bird poem is called Scrub Jays. They have this awful screech. I don't know if you know about scrub jays. I'm very impressed that so many people are here today. If we were in California, everybody would be at the beach. So anyway, scrub jays. Free as a bird you wish, grounded and cross old man, glaring from the kitchen window as I stab my beak into the choice apples at the top of your tree. You can ball your fists all you want, you can grit your plastic teeth, but there's nothing that you can do about it. What good are apples to old men anyway? You have lost your bite. You have run out of ladders to climb. Your ultrasonic solar-powered animal repellent, the Honda among dissuaders, might have rid your garden of the capo cats, but the banded raccoons figured out that one within 48 hours. Get rid of one pest only invites others. You're in your 70s and haven't learned that? Now that the coast is clear, our entire family can fly in. I know we are warbleless. We are born thieves. We'll steal an acorn from a woodpecker. We beat you out of your harvest. We who are not the decorous, fluorescent songbird of your dreams. Okay, thank you. This is called The Thing Between Us. The Thing Between Us. In the winter, this roomy ghetto Queen Anne is hard to heat. Made of maple, it survived the big one in '06. You were made of plastic and survived only 2 years. Those were good years for us. On that last night, we surfed until 3. I held you in my hand, but the next morning, your place between me and her was empty. I saw the wrinkles where you usually lay. Instead, you were next to the bed. Your AA batteries resting at the brink of the grate. In a panic, I tried to reassemble you, but that only made matters worse. Satellite TV sent me a upgrade. Boy, is it sleek, postmodern, a candidate for the Whitney. It's plastic like you, but while you are all black, it is blue with pretty red, green, yellow buttons. It just doesn't have your feel. Well, you all, don't you all have remotes? Okay. That's my idea of a love poem, okay? I don't know what I'd do without my remote. All this other stuff could go. This is a poem I wrote for Billy Strayhorn, who's a great composer, whose songs Duke Ellington took credit for. You know, Duke Ellington used to live here in Washington. As a matter of fact, I was in his neighborhood, this historic neighborhood yesterday, where Duke Ellington lived, Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, a lot of people. This is called Sweet Pea. Billy Strayhorn was nicknamed Sweet Pea. He was introduced in 1927. Sweet Pea was introduced to Duke Ellington. Thus began a collaboration that lasted until May 31st, 1967. Those who witnessed the birth of this creative partnership were Harry Carney, baritone saxophone, Johnny Hodges, alto saxophone, and Ivy Anderson, vocalist. Duke said to Billy, 23 years old at the time, "Sit down at the piano and let me hear what you can do." He said, "Sit down at the piano and let me hear what you can do." Never one to hide his proclivities, he got through high school thinking of himself as a lonesome flower, of a passion flower. Don't real men think of themselves as steel with arms full of power, who put their shoulders to the wheel, as towers of strength, who won't read a book? Not one could cook for the cast of Otto Preminger's Anatomy of Murder. Duke said, quote, "He became the official cook because we had a great kitchen and lots of pots and pans. He would not allow anyone else to enter the kitchen, and he used to cook some great dishes. He even got himself a chef's hat." That was Billy Strayhorn, whose songs were about the haunted, those who spend their days in daydream and reverie, who see bridges that can't be found, whose feet don't seem to touch the ground, missing in action from everyday life, journeying through life. Without a spouse, they prefer the cafe rounds at night. Billy Strayhorn, your music could be as subtle as a chilled martini glass of gin with a light spray of vermouth, the drink they call Billy's drink at Cafe Society. You knew all about wines. Your music could be fantastical, ethereal, Shakespearean, but then it could be like the fist of the brown bomber, like the score you wrote based simply on Duke's instruction to you about how to get to his house, 409 Edgecombe Avenue, Harlem. The Harlem of Sugar Hill, of Fats Wilders, of W.B. Du Bois, of Walter White, Roy Wilkins, Reverend Adam David Powell, Sr. of Langston Hughes, Ralph Ellison, Zora Neale Hurston, Paul Robeson, Cab Calloway, Thurgood Marshall, George S. Schuyler, Sonny Rollins. Joe Louis once had a bar here. Also, Cab Calloway. Duke is doing some things in 1952 on the hit parade with his right hand. The quickest way to get to Harlem. where Negro poets and Negro numbers bankers mingle with downtown poets and seat of the stock exchange racketeers, the Harlem of Malcolm X and Flo Mills, of mansions and cheap thrills, a place where people raise hell. Bessie Smith bailed Mulroney out of jail. A Garvey's Knight Commanders of the Distinguished Order, his Black Cross nurses marching, of the Cotton Club and Connie's jumping. Bert Williams had supper every night at a club on 136th Street called the Oriental. County Cullen wrote of Harlem's blithe, ecstatic hips, moving under Sterling Brown's motherly moon. Take the A Train, introduced in the key of C major with 4 bars, including those famous triplets, then switching to F major at the bridge. Hurry, get on now, it's coming. Billy Strayhorn, aren't we lucky that you didn't take a cab? It's another surrealist poem about my stuff. This is called Apricot Tree on the Couch. Apricot Tree on the Couch. I don't know what's gotten into my apricot tree. Some of those prescription drugs that people are leaking into the water supply? That would account for its mood swings. One spring, fruit that would win a blue ribbon at the Marin County Apricot Fair, those white blossoms excited me. The next spring, its limbs are barren. Is it bipolar? Struggling with its inner plum? Is it still missing its roots in Armenia? Still mourning its mother, who was done in by termites? I asked the gardener for a diagnosis. He and his family spent 3 weeks on a raft after Saigon fell, so he knows all about water. He said he'd put the tree on the couch and give me an answer. When I returned from a trip, the tree had become a stump. Handing me a bill, he said it needed a fresh start. My brother-in-law is named Myron Solomon, and he's a great physicist, and has always enlightened me about what's happening in space. This is called Myron. We lunch at Spinger's, a Berkeley fresh fish grotto built on Ohlone bones and tall tales about marlins that fought for hours. Dining in this place is like dining on the Seahawk, 1940. But we aren't moving, but maybe we are. By the time we finish lunch, the Earth will have traveled 6,500 miles. And don't expect Earl Flynn in pirate costume to swashbuckle across the floor, nor do swords cross at this site, only knives and forks going at the mussels, clams, and shrimp. It is rumored that Clark Gable once sampled the famous clam chowder of this restaurant where a Polynesian wood, quote, idol greets the diners. Myron and Sonia have joined us. I'm having blackened catfish. They pry their meals from shells. They stopped off in Berkeley on the way to SFO. His destination is Dallas. He heads the Department of Physics there. She's going to Santa Fe to inspect their new home. I overheard 2 shaggy professors, old and soft and retired, argue about science in the men's locker room at the Berkeley YMCA. One said that science is only a method and that science can't explain gravity. I can. Sonia is gravity, and not even the chemo or infusions can come between her and her students as she fights the invader like the Russians fought at Leningrad. I imagine Myron as a youngster, while his friends are trading baseball cards, he's reading Einstein and making experiments in his parents' basement. His mom and dad will call these experiments explosions. He's studying applied biology because he says soon they will be able to swab the inside of your mouth and with the DNA collected predict diseases to which one is prone and prescribe medication. He says that the universe's speed is accelerating, and I read, quote, If the universe continues accelerating, astronomers say, rather than coasting gently into the night, distant galaxies will eventually be moving apart so quickly that they cannot communicate with one another, and all the energy will be sucked out of the universe. And I'm thinking, if this happened, what will happen to my archives? But Sonia reassures me. She quotes, cosmologists are often given to hype, as in hyperbole. I asked Myron about Michiko Kaku's prediction that time travel will enable a person's descendants to visit that person. Hong Kong scientists dispute the idea. They say that they have proved that a single photon obeys Einstein's theory that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. I think they're wrong, because every time I talk to Myron, I feel that someone is visiting me from the future. This is a poem I wrote about a family member, and he's not here, so I can read it. Okay? Brother-in-law. He went to Hollywood to become a comedian. Instead, he became a joke. Oh, does that mean? Okay. Let's see. I'll read a couple more. How's the time? You down there? She down? You've heard these poems before. What you down there laughing for? What's that? It's funny. Okay. What? So how much more time do I have? Okay. I'll read two more. This is a poem. I've been very privileged to have some of the great singers record my songs, including Macy Gray, most recently this year, Taj Mahal, Bobby Womack, Eddie Harris, and Cassandra Wilson. So Cassandra Wilson's people asked me to write a song for her, and so I tried to mesh the Greek myth with her name. It's sort of like Ebonics. So take on this Cassandra. She sounds like she's her hair is couldn't tame her, all that. The Prophet of Doom. My name is Cassandra, and you can hear this. What's the name of that record? It's called Sacred Ground, I believe. Yeah, the Black Saint Quartet. She recorded this. So it's on a CD. My name is Cassandra, daughter of Hecuba, priestess of Athena, student of Apollo, and sister of Paris. They call me the Prophet of Doom. I told the fool to leave that married woman alone, the one with the so-so looks. I said she'd bring ruin to our Trojan home, and she did. Apollo took me to school, but I taught him a thing or two. Never think that because you are a god, every girl is going to put out for you. He must have thought I was an easy nymph, someone that he could seduce and pimp. I predicted that my master would die, and he did. I said that his wife would behead the man who took me as booty, and she did. She got the wrong idea about our relationship. Violated by the soldier Ajax, Athena ordered the thunder to punish him, and she did. My name is Cassandra. They call me the Prophet of Doom, the one they wouldn't listen to, the one they called insane. They got on me about my dreads, my hair that wouldn't be tamed, the one whom they brought to Greece naked and in chains. I said that the country would fall, and it did. Okay, and the last poem, thank you. The last poem is called Red Summer 2015, inspired by Claude McKay's If We Must Die, who wrote that poem in response to Red Summer in 1919. The year is 2015. 9 Christians were shot by a man with a scheme. He was nurtured and weaned on a textbook of lies in which slavers and killers reigned supreme. Jefferson Davis, Nathan Bedford Forrest, and Robert E. Lee. The stranger came to prey with a mind full of bile, a mother played dead in the blood of her child. A child was shot down while playing a game. The police asked questions, but nobody was blamed. The stars in his eyes went dim in the day. He was killed on the grounds where children play. A man was shot while running away. The shooter took aim as though he were game. The demons are partying with their buddies, the fiends, and having a good time. Red Summer, the year is 2015. For making ends meet by selling cigs loose or making a lane chain, they will give you the noose. His neck was squeezed. He could breathe no more. They found her dead on the jailhouse floor. A grand jury looked and issued a tone. They blessed the killers and allowed them to roam. When Dorsey got news that both wife and child were dead, that's our mood in this summer of dread. The Spirit was his guide when he wrote that great song, but who is the God who will take our hand, and who is the God who will lead us on? Quote, "Don't you get weary," Martin said when he spoke of his dream. His words have kept us from drowning in screams. In this bloody summer of 2015, where killers and murderers reign supreme, you brought down the battle flag, you all joined hands and cried, but you still have highways and buildings honoring those who committed those high crimes, who didn't want people to be free. Jefferson Davis, Nathan Bedford Forrest, and Robert E. Lee. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Come to my, I'm doing a book signing. What time? What time? A book signing at 3:30 of my Muhammad Ali book. And where's it going to take place? Oh. Okay. Where's? Downstairs. Thank you very much for coming out, everybody. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.